Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am so excited to have my next guest. She actually spells her name like my daughter, Elizabeth with an S. So glad we got connected. We had a great conversation, and I'm excited to dive into this brain based wellness. We'll find out more about that shortly. But before we get into the interview, I want to give Elizabeth the opportunity to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, I am the founder of a virtual platform called Brain Based Wellness, and I'm an
Mhm.
applied neurologist. So I help people take the latest in brain science and make it into really functional exercises that they can use to train their brain and their nervous system, just
Mm.
little practical tools that you can use to improve the health of your nervous system on a daily basis. And that way you can handle more stress in life, you can be more resilient without moving into unwanted outputs of the nervous system under stress, like pain, like migraine, shutdown,
Mhm.
fatigue. And so we meet live on the site, we do nervous system training, and then I also work with people in a small group capacity to help people train their nervous systems to resolve unwanted behaviors like um, exhaustion, workaholism, binge eating, shutdown, migraine, that kind of stuff.
Love it. And it sounds so appealing to me. Wish I had heard about this years ago. Okay, but
Yeah,
it's
I
never too
understand.
late because I went
It's
on that
right.
thing. Yeah, 13 years of depression. And now, with so many women sometimes not even realizing the tools that they can use to minimize a lot of this. Sometimes I think it is just something we embrace. Oh,
Yeah,
if moms are overworked or moms do all this, and it's like a self fulfilling prophecy. So I
yeah,
love
that's
that you have some tools. So I want to
it's
say the
really
first
true.
thing, yeah, what's the most um well, I would say, what is something that would really shock us about something that we kind of do that is self-inflicted about, this nervous system and keeping it in its not optimal peak that we
That's a
do on
great
regular.
question. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what's important about what you just said too is that, we're all born with this miraculous system inside of us, this really well designed operating system, our nervous system. But very few of us understand even that it's there really and like what it's doing, and that it is changing all the time. It's changing on a second by second basis. It's very plastic. Our brains and our nervous systems are malleable, and they respond to the stimulus that we put in. So you can have some agency, some choice over how your nervous system changes, if it moves in a positive or a negative direction over time. And our nervous system in our body is always speaking to us too. So everything we experience in our mind, we experience in our body as well. All of our life stresses, all of our past trauma, all of our experiences live inside of our body, not just our mind. And really need to be processed through the body and healed at the level of the body and the nervous system so that we can create real change. And I would say one of the things that we all tend to do, and you're right, moms, especially during the pandemic, have had to carry
Mm-hmm.
so much. And I think one of the things that we do as women, and especially moms, is we shove our own needs to the side
Mm-hmm.
as we take care of everybody else, right? And as we do that, we can often become very disconnected and dissociated from our own bodies. And we start
Mm-hmm.
to lose our ability to hear and to read the signals that our body is giving us. And the body is always talking to you and asking for what it needs, but we will push through that a lot of the time in order to get done what we need to get done or to show up how we need to in the world. But how it works is the body speaks quietly at first. It'll be like a subtle pain in your left knee or an ache in your jaw. And then if you keep adding stress into the system, your body your old brain and your nervous system understand this deep truth that too much stress for too long is dangerous. It dysregulates the nervous system and it causes disease. So your brain and your nervous system are going to start to create protective outputs to try to get you to reduce the amount of stimulus that's coming in because there's too much stress, too much threat going on. And so as that stress level rises without you doing anything to process the stress through or to heal the deficits in the nervous system, those protective outputs get more severe. So it will start with a little bit of pain or tiredness, exhaustion, maybe some racing thoughts, and then it will start to move into extreme pain or depression or a migraine or an unwanted behavior like stress eating, binge eating, anything that gets you to shut down, to reduce the amount of stimulus coming in, and to really protect yourself in that moment, in the moment that your old brain is concerned about, because it's just said, hey, it's been too much for too long. So if we can start to learn to read those signals earlier and to start to develop some little tools, practical tools that you can use to regulate your nervous system and give it the stimulus that it needs, then we don't have to go all the way into those periods of intense shutdown, migraine, fatigue, binge eating, depression, or extreme chronic pain.
I love that. And you bring up a good point about reading the signals. And, what comes to mind is that a lot of people think that they're hungry when really they may be thirsty, which you learn later on as you deal with nutrition. But some of these signals, I think a lot of time we talk about, well, I really didn't do whatever. And so we make an excuse rather than acknowledging what that signal may be telling us. So, what are some of these signals that come up outside of maybe the minor pain, but some of the things that maybe we can misinterpret that really are a signal that we need to kind of chill out rather than sometimes the physical pain? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
I think as women especially, a lot of times we have events in our past that lead us to dissociate from our body a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Past trauma, um, different experiences that take us out of our body. And because at the time it's what our old brain and our nervous system thinks is safer for us to not be in our body and experiencing that. And we get very disconnected, and it can almost feel unsafe to be in your body and to feel those sensations. But the more we stay disconnected from our body, the less, just like you were talking about, the less we're able to read those signals. And then the further we push ourselves into nervous system dysregulation because we're not capable of feeling and experiencing those signals anymore. So one of the very best things to do to start to check in, to start to teach yourself how to learn those signals or how to hear those signals, is to practice. So everything is a skill, and every skill is trainable in terms of like looking at it through the lens of applied neurology. So even just starting with 30 seconds a day and sitting up, taking a breath in, taking a nice long exhale, and just practice dropping from your head down into your body and start to be curious about what you're feeling. Ask yourself, like, how does it feel in the bottom of my belly? How does it feel in the center of my chest? How does it feel in my throat? And try to look at those sensations without a lot of judgment, without attaching like, oh, it's bad that I feel pain here, or my heart is beating too fast, or try to just be curious and see how many signals you can read. Can you feel your rib cage expand when you breathe in and contract, and start to understand that everything in your body is sensory and it's always sending signals back up to your brain? And the more you spend time practicing that skill, the better it will become. And it may feel really uncomfortable at first, which is why start with just a small amount, 30 seconds, minimum effective dose, and give yourself just that 30 seconds to start to read those signals. Because the thing is, it's going to be a little bit different for everyone how our body talks to us, because our nervous systems are all a unique compilation of our own past experiences, our own habitual movements, our own patterns. So for me, I start to feel a little bit of pain in my left knee. I feel tension in the right side of my jaw. I get a little bit of brain fog. And if when I feel those signals, I can stop and be like, okay, this is a signal that I'm starting to push into too much threat. I need to do something to regulate my nervous system, whether that's taking a couple really nice, long, slow exhalation breaths, just breathing in through my nose and then breathing out through my mouth like a straw and making my exhale twice as long as my inhale. fMRIs have showed that as few as 6 breaths like that can actually switch you from your fight and flight response into a more parasympathetic, calmer state of
Mm.
being. And so when I feel those signals, I can just take 6 nice long exhalation breaths, and then that'll give me enough awareness without being in my survival response to maybe do something else that my body needs. Maybe I go for a walk, maybe I take a hot bath, maybe I call a friend that I have a good connection with and just spend a few minutes like laughing, connecting. Maybe I bounce and shake around a little bit to move some of that stress out of my body. But I just start to implement little techniques that can interrupt that cycle of stress response.
Love that. Now, and so I love that you bring that up because stress response is something that's more subconscious, correct?
That's right. So
Okay.
it's really important to understand that our brain's primary job is our survival, and
Mm-hmm.
not our frontal lobe, but our old brain, our cerebellum, our brainstem, our back brain is always deciding safe or unsafe. It's taking in all the stimulus from the world around you and from inside of your own body, and it's integrating all of that together and making a clear picture of where you are in the world and the world around you. And it decides, am I safe in this moment or am I not safe? And then it produces an output based on the decision that it makes then. And if it doesn't feel safe, it will produce a protective output. So again, those outputs could look like pain. It could look like a limited range of motion, muscle weakness. It could start to give you a headache so that you need to go lay down. Anything that it can do to get you to change your behavior to make you safer in that moment, according to the information that your brain is
Mm.
receiving. And that's not what we decide at in our frontal lobe. That's what we decide at the old brain level. And it's important to understand too that we really can't override that survival response for too long. Eventually it's going to win. So we need to do things to make our brain feel safer at that level if we want to start getting
Mm.
out of those survival responses.
Love that. And so, what are some of these small things that we could do? I love how you mentioned the breathing. You know,
Yes,
I just kind of think of it as transitions or something, like a play, in between each act, there's intermission or whatever, change of
that's a
scene.
beautiful way to think of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
transitions are so important because say you're in a meeting and your stress level is going up, 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 up. If before the next meeting you can do something to bring that down, then you're
Hmm.
constantly recalibrating the threat level of your nervous system.
Hmm.
And that way you are creating kind of a new baseline so that you don't just
Hmm.
keep escalating as the day goes on, right? With the kids, things
Hmm.
are stressful. If you can just go to the bathroom and for just 2 or 3 minutes do a quick drill to make you feel better and then go back out. So a couple things that people can do that I tend to find are pretty high payoff for a lot of my clients are,
Hmm.
one is train your peripheral vision. So when we're under threat, our vision becomes very hyper focused. So we really
Hmm.
like kind of in that like laser focusing in on whatever's in front of us is a threat
Hmm.
response. And
Hmm.
so if we can expand our vision into the periphery, we are giving our brain a signal from our body up that we're no longer under threat. So it's kind of a bottom up
Hmm.
approach to reducing threat. So you could simply just take your thumbs out in front of you, take them out to the side, kind of wiggle them around and see how far you can move them. I mean, see how far you can take them out to the side and still see them in your periphery. So keep your head facing forward, your eyes facing forward, and see how much you can see without changing the direction of your eyes or your head. Or even
Mm.
just go for a walk. And as you're walking, keep your head forward, keep your eyes forward, and see how much information you can take in from your peripheral vision. And there are lots of studies that show this has a tremendous impact on our emotional state, on our threat response. It moves us more into a parasympathetic state of our nervous system, which is our calm and respond. And training this system, this peripheral vision system, has a lot of benefits in our cognition and our memory, and it's just a really good skill to train that your
Mhm.
brain responds really well to. So thinking about training your peripheral vision, and whenever you do these drills, it's a good idea to assess and reassess. So
Mhm.
it's important to know that change at the level of the nervous system is instantaneous. It happens right away. And so
Wow.
yeah, when you do a drill or an exercise or really anything in your life, if you can do an assessment first and then reassess after, you can know if what you're doing is moving your nervous system in a positive or a negative direction. So you can test like a range of motion. So say you have a really tight shoulder, lock your elbow, take your arm up by the side of your head and see how much tension is in your shoulder. If there's any pain, rate that on a scale of 1 to 10. You could just rotate your head from side to side and see how far you can see out of the corner of your eye. You could
Mhm.
do a forward fold, see how tight your hamstrings are, or you could even do an exercise like a push up. And then do the drill, do the exercise, and then reassess. And if it's a positive drill for you, you'll have greater range of motion through the joints. So you'll be able to have more range of motion. You'll experience less pain, maybe drop into your body, see if you have a greater sense of well being afterwards. And then the drills that are positive, just kind of keep those in your back pocket. So when you're under a lot of stress, you can slip away, do a drill, or you can do it in the transition from one meeting to another so that you're constantly re-regulating your nervous system. So another drill to do would be one for your vagus nerve. The vagus
Mhm.
nerve is a really important cranial nerve that runs from your brain down into your body, and it's responsible for a lot of your autonomic function, all the things that
Mhm.
are happening without our conscious awareness. So, if we can improve the health of the vagus nerve, that helps us regulate our heart rate, breathe better, it helps with digestion. So, the vagus nerve also innervates the tongue. So, a really great way to give the vagus nerve stimulus is to just do some tongue circles. So, you would just take your tongue and you would run it over your teeth with your mouth closed and try to go a little bit further back with each circle and do 3 to 4 circles in each direction. And then take a breath in, take a nice long exhale, and then reassess and see how your nervous system responded to that. And it's a really quick way to just give your nervous system a reset in between activities.
Love that. I mean, I love the things that you're bringing up because, as you're talking, I think when I was going through my depression, there was just whatever way the day started, it just continued to stay on that path. And by what you're talking about with these transitions is it to me it's like active living. You're going to assess, okay, what's going good? Let's make some modifications. It is actively being involved in the day that you want to create. And it's not just going to happen on its own. It takes you being a part of that finished product, so to speak. So I love that you mentioned that. I think that's amazing. And, it's just such a testament to oftentimes we just allow our body to control us rather than thinking about specific actions that we can take. It's kind of like you're in your head, and that being in your head controls or minimizes what you do or supports what you do just from staying in your own head. It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah, it can feel so frustrating sometimes, like our body and our, I guess, our subconscious mind is working against us. It feels like we're
Hmm.
driven by these things that sometimes it's like, I don't even know how I ended up here. Like I had these high intentions and then all of a sudden here I am. So for me, when I I really began this work in this business because of a very difficult time in my own life, right? I had
Mhm.
been a teacher of movement practices and had a studio here in Austin for a long time. And went through a period where I lost the business. I was under a tremendous amount of financial stress. My fiance at the time had pretty severe PTSD and also developed a rare cancer around his heart. And so I was his caretaker and
Mhm.
also dealing with the loss of my business. And in that time, all of my childhood trauma that I had never dealt with, that I just shoved way down, started to come back up because of the intensity of the stress that I was under and all these other things. And I started to experience some really severe outputs of my own nervous system. My binge eating got really bad and painful. I was in a lot of chronic pain, bad anxiety. I would just be driving and have to like throw up into my Starbucks cup,
Wow.
and because my body was just under so much stress and it was trying to do everything it could to get me to regulate myself. It was under
Mhm.
too much threat. And I already taught applied neurology. I'd been certified in applied neurology since 2014, but I had really just used it for athletic performance and pain management. But as
Mhm.
I was going through this time, I started to recognize in myself all the signals that I saw in my chronic pain clients before they went into an episode of pain, right? Threat response, startle response in the body, which is like kind of rounding forward. It's again that hyper focus and a lot of tension in the eyes. It's
Mhm.
collapsing in on yourself. And I would start to also notice those pain signals coming from my body. And I began to realize, man, everything is an output of the nervous system. It drives so much of our behavior, not just
Mhm.
my pain, but everything that I'm experiencing. And so as I started to heal my trauma from my past somatically and process it through the body, I also started to use applied neurology to try to help me be able to move out of some of these unwanted patterns. And so I learned if I could see my body not as this thing working against me, but as an ally that was really trying to keep me safe. My body was just trying to keep me safe from the amount of
Mhm.
stress that I was under. And so that's when I started practicing really trying to tune into the signals that it was giving me and then learning self-regulation tools, stimulating my vagus nerve or working on my visual system or even just bouncing, shaking, moving around is a great way to process stress in real time. And so I started to utilize that to move me out of those cycles of binge eating, out of the cycles of shutting down, out of getting a really bad migraine, and gradually over time, being really patient with myself. I developed a different relationship with my body where I started to spend time in it, spend time feeling the sensations inside, and then using that to help me cultivate a training methodology where I could change the baseline threat level of my nervous system so that it would be possible to move out of some of these behaviors.
I love that. And so, what comes to mind is, there's just like this autopilot a lot of times when you're dealing with stress. It's like that negative talk, or, it just happens. You don't even think about it. It's like a
That's right.
song that's always playing in the background. So, in doing the new habit formation with the transitions, is it, better for us to have words that we associate with it, like affirmations or
That's a
something that kind of,
beautiful question. I love
yeah.
that. Yes, I do that with myself and with my clients a lot. So, what I found is we all have these deeply ingrained beliefs that we created as very small children to try to ensure our survival and keep us safe, right? At some point, we
Mhm.
decided we needed to adopt a certain belief it really in order to make sure that we get our needs met to keep us from being abandoned or neglected or to get the love that we need. Well, maybe if I just suppress some of my desires, or if I don't ask for too much, or if I work so much that I can ensure my safety and all these things, I'm not enough, I'm too much, whatever it is, the belief is there. And as we start to try to change these limiting beliefs because we realize cognitively that they don't serve us anymore. So understanding that like Like for me, for instance, I had a lot of instability and sometimes violence in my childhood. And so I had this really deeply embodied belief that visibility was dangerous, right? If you can
Hmm.
stay invisible, it's just safer because people are unpredictable. And so as I started to build this new business and step into being the face of it and do things like come on this podcast and put my message out into the world, it was very threatening to my nervous system because at this deep level, I still believed visibility was dangerous. And so I cognitively understand that, posting on social media or sending out an email is not threatening to my survival, but my old brain doesn't necessarily think that yet. And so I
Hmm.
had this new belief: visibility is an act of service, visibility serves the world, visibility protects me. But I had to really bring that into my body. So, what I do with myself and with a lot of my clients is do something to help regulate your nervous system while you're repeating the new belief. So, I would maybe do tongue circles and be thinking the new belief in my mind: visibility protects me, visibility protects me. And maybe I would even just distill that down to one word, like a mantra, like visibility or service, and just repeat that word as I'm doing the drills that make my nervous system feel calm and safe, and then just kind of let it wash over my body so that I'm more open and receptive to taking in that new belief. And there's less of that old instinctual survival response that gets threatened. And I found that with combining that with nervous system regulation, maybe EFT tapping, maybe doing those long exhalation breaths, maybe training my peripheral vision while I'm thinking about that one word over and over again, that my body and my old brain became much more receptive to adopting that new belief. And then it became more possible for me to implement it in my life and not get shut down by trying to do the work that I needed to create the life that I wanted.
Love that. That is just some great points. I mean, this has been a very informative conversation, and I hope a lot of people are taking notes because so often we just ignore some of these triggers or mindsets that we're having. And I love the conversation because it just shows that we have the ability to take those small steps that can really impact our day. And I think it just begins with having a good day. So often, if you
Absolutely.
just have one good day, you can have another, and you can just continue to build them up for a better month, a better year,
That's right.
better life. So I
That's
love
right.
that.
The more you practice that, moving your nervous system in a positive direction, it builds on itself, right? Until you
Mhm.
are in this new state of being. And it's so, moms, it's so worth it to take the time for yourself, to give yourself at least a few minutes a day of really caring for yourself in that deep way, because you do so much and you deserve it.
So true. So, what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you? Because I know that many people have resonated with this topic, and are looking for ways that they can not only help themselves but be able to help others. Whether it's their children or their
Absolutely.
spouses, coworkers. What's the
Yeah,
best way for them to
absolutely.
get a hold of you?
The best way is through my website, which is brainbased-wellness.com. And if
Hmm.
you go there, I actually have a free applied neurology 101 course that'll teach you a little bit more about how to assess and reassess how something is affecting your nervous system. And it
Hmm.
also teaches like 4 or 5 of the highest payoff drills that I found that for a lot of my clients, they get a really positive response for, so that you can learn those drills and you can just have them in your back pocket to use when you're stressed out, to use, like you said, in transition, to use in the morning when you start your day so that you're starting at a new nervous system baseline. So if you just go to the website, brainbased-wellness.com, it's really easy to sign up for that there. And you can just cultivate a very short, easy to implement practice to help you self regulate.
Love you. Thank you so much for that. That is just
You are
wonderful.
so welcome.
Okay.
You're
Now,
so welcome.
this has just been great. I think so often many people just continue to do the same things over and over because they don't really infuse new information, or, it's topics that we just don't even acknowledge. We just keep on, we just think everybody has this issue. There is no light at the end of the tunnel, and we just kind of accept, the pains or the struggles, and we often profess that for ourselves. So I love how you were able to really allow us to hone in on this in ways that seem very manageable and easy to implement. So,
Yeah,
what
that's the
final?
important part.
Yes, because if it's too hard, people just throw
It's
their
too
hands up and don't
much.
even get
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
They want the big results, and but then can't take even
It's
small
too
action
overwhelming.
sometimes.
Yeah. 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 I feel that. I feel it.
Mhm. So, what final words would you like to share with everybody?
I would just like to share the idea that everybody does the best they can at the level of their nervous system. So if you
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed or burnt out, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just an output of a nervous system that's been under too much stress for too long.
Mm.
And it is possible to heal that. Our nervous system is always changing, it's never too late. And there are simple, actionable steps you can take to make the rest of the work seem less overwhelming. So you can start with as
Mm.
little as 3 minutes a day and move yourself in a positive direction so that change and healing become possible. And it's available, it's there for you, and you're worth it.
Love it. Great, great, great insight. So I encourage everybody to reach out to Elisabeth. If anything she said resonated with you, just start with a conversation. A lot of times we talk ourselves out of stuff, we get busy. And when we're putting other things before ourselves, it's just a recipe for disaster. Been there, done that. Okay. So
Me
reach
too.
out, have a conversation, look up her website, get the free information that she has for you today, because the only person that can make a change in your life is you. So take that time today to value yourself and do what it takes to start breaking some of these cycles that just are not serving you well. I've been there, done that myself, and I'm happy to be on a side to where I'm really enjoying life, loving it. However, it takes work to maintain it. You just don't get a car from the dealership and think you only have to put gas in it one time. Okay, you've got to fill
Very
it up
true.
on a regular basis. So,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
maintenance of everything else. So, thank you again so much, Elizabeth. So glad
Thank
that our
you so
paths
much for
crossed.
having me. I was really
You
happy
are
to be here and chat with you today.
You are so welcome. And we want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll be sure to pass that on to Elizabeth and we'll get all those questions answered. But in the meantime, we want to thank you guys for watching this episode. Stay tuned. I will have more later on today. But right now, we just want to thank you and we will see you later on. Have a great, amazing day. Bye for now.